When do you want to go?
We can go now.
Well, when's now?
Now.
When will be now? Soon. If anyone knows what that's from, let me know. So we are live? Welcome!
You have a microphone turned way out right now.
I apologize for the live streamers that I may have blown out some eardrums. My bad. Sweet! Welcome to DenverScript. Everyone's masked up except me, which makes sense because I'm talking. Thank you, everyone, for playing it safe. Really appreciate it. Yet a new variant out. Sweet. Welcome. So, just curious, how many first-timers do we have? I swear to God, it's like 50-50. Awesome. Well, welcome, newcomers and returning people. Appreciate it. So, these are not made possible without sponsors. So, Code Talent, if you don't know where that is, that's where you're sitting in now. If you're in need of a job, looking to fill a role, please reach out to them. They got me like 2 jobs in my career already. They're great people. They work with some really awesome companies. Please feel free to reach out to them. I know it says they're only sponsoring the venue, but we're also rating their beer fridge, which they said was okay. So please, if you haven't grabbed a beverage, do so. Schedule, you get to listen to me for like 20 minutes. Yay for you. Intro, job announcements, what's going on JavaScript land. If you can figure out a way to say that acronym in a cool way, let me know. We haven't figured it out in 7 years. Then we have a shorter presentation and a longer presentation, and that will be from Matt and Jonathan, and I don't have my laptop up. Wait, hold on. Hey, there we go. So, shorter presentation is Office automation with Azure and SignalR? I think SignalR. And then who knew embedding SSO authenticated dashboards would be this much fun? I'm assuming that's a trolling face, not a grinning face they sent me. Cool. Also, we're an open collective. That means we are a nonprofit. We take in donations as a nonprofit, and it goes to things like we have a meetup account that's like $200 a year. We just actually out of our own pockets dropped about $400 total for a streaming service that took us about 45 minutes to set up. So anything, $5, whatever. I mean, we appreciate any contributions we can do so we're not always eating the cash on this. But Garrett Dawson, former organizer, has been a recurring donator for $5 every month. Really appreciate that. Jake, new a couple months ago, he started doing it. So please, anyone, and you know what, also, get your companies to do it. Tell them it's a tax write-off, because it is. And I won't bore you with that. It's basically I was just groveling to you now to give us money. Awesome. Next, what's going on JavaScript land?
Oh, sweet. JavaScript land. I prepared this time. Last time was our first time that we were doing the live stream, and I was so thrown off by getting that ready. I didn't do anything for this, but I did this time. So we get 2 Chrome updates in 1 this time. So what's going on in JavaScript land? So before I start, who's new here? Oh, sweet. Man, I love how like every time, rain or shine, it's always 50-50. Fantastic.
You know I already did that, right?
What? Well, yeah, but I didn't hear any of it because I was checking on the quality of the stream.
Okay. Fair.
Matthew.
Fair.
So welcome, everybody. So for those of you that are new, what we do every month is what's going on in JavaScript land is kind of like we like this to be sort of a 2-way conversation where we're kind of open it up and let you guys know like a couple of things that we're excited about. We love hearing about the stuff that you guys are excited about, and this can be from as high level as like software development in general, or it could be like, you know, a JavaScript thing that's coming up, or it could be about frameworks, like new information you heard about there, or it could be like as low level and personal as something as like we call these high five moments where they can say it's been around for a long time, but you know it's just new to you and you've just discovered how to use this new thing and it's been really cool and you're really excited about it, or you just figured out how to fix this gnarly bug and you want to be able to like high five people around you that actually care for you. You know what I mean? Like about your bug fixes.
It also doesn't matter. It could be like as simple as like I discovered text decorations the other day.
Yeah.
They're all wins.
Yeah. It's like see, 50%. I get to use the joke every time. It's like the NBC reruns. If you haven't seen it, it's new to you, right? So for those of you that discovered a new thing and it's new to you and you're excited about it, please feel free to share. So to kick it off, what we normally do, and this is why I was giving myself a hard time, because whenever there's a new Chrome DevTools release, I nerd out on Chrome DevTools debugging, and so I like sharing the stuff that I'm excited about, the latest release. Last month I forgot to do it, so this month we get 2 of them. Matt always does a really good job of linking this Google Doc when it's all typed up with additional details of additional links of like if you guys mention libraries and things, he does a good job of finding the docs and stuff and linking it. So don't feel like you need to like write all this stuff down. There's Chrome 95 and 96 came out. We have links to the highlights video that walks you through examples of everything and the release notes. But going through it, this one I actually put that I'm excited to talk about it. I'm not super thrilled with their implementation. You guys have probably seen this already in the CSS pane when you're like modifying in Chrome. How now, I think it's a good idea that like when you like click on the units, you can like change all the units like right away. But I don't know about you guys, but for me, I love the fact that like previously, I loved how it was you can like click on like the entry and then just like, go up and down like with the actual keyboard and like see the values going up and down. Now with this new thing, when you like click on like the value, this selector for units pops up instead, so that's kind of annoying. So I'm not super thrilled with the implementation, but I'm excited to talk to you guys about it because it's frustrating me. The one thing that did add though that I saw in this video that's linked above that you'll be able to see is that if you did like that feature, how many people used to like use that feature? I use it all the time, where you like click on it and push up and down to like see how much like padding or pixels increase by just going up and down on the keyboard. If you want to still do that, it's still supported, but now it's like a silly thing where you have to like click and like go sideways, like as if it was like a scroll dial, and you can like hold shift and it'll do increments of 10, or if you don't, it'll go like, anyway, it's in the video. They're gonna have to fix that, it's terrible. Yes, Matt.
Who the hell uses millimeters?
Yeah, I don't know. And also, like, I'm really curious.
I guess print layout?
Like, I get the idea, like, I understand the idea, but I'm really curious to know who's doing a rapid switch from, like, M's to, like, VMAX, you know what I mean? That you need, that you have to have that real handy.
I'll tell you.
Please do, Kyle.
My resume is, like...
In REMS?
No, I kept fucking around with it in, like, Illustrator or some tool I don't know how to use. It's like, wait a minute, I'm already good at one layout engine. And so I wrote it in HTML and CSS, like, but I also wanted the print version to be that. And so, like, writing the print styles and stuff, I totally had to go back and forth between physical units and digital units.
Okay, all right. I'll give you that, Kyle. So Kyle's excited about this new feature. So we found someone that's excited about it. So anyway, yeah, cool. So hold on. So then the next one there. This is something they've been doing a lot, where they'll pick like a feature and kind of run with it for several months and do like sequential iterations on it. The one that they've been doing for a while now is in the console. You've probably seen that your different issues appear with like different tabs and like filtering abilities or whatever else. You can now, if you click on a row and click on the little hamburger thing on the side, you can click hide issues like this. So like if you want to hide CORS errors or whatever else, you can do that. And then any things like that have been spamming up your console that you hide will appear in hidden issues now. And you can also unfilter them or whatever else there. So that's kind of cool.
Just like real life.
Just ignoring CORS errors?
Not just ignoring your issues.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I thought you were just talking about like real life development. I just ignore CORS issues until somebody says, hey, this stopped working.
True.
All right, then Chrome 96 came out. It was actually kind of an underwhelming release. They had like, oh, that's unfortunate. Ziggy zaggy, oi. So
Paper towels are over there.
Chrome 96 was not that many like really super exciting things, yeah. Oh, right, I remember. Sorry, if you scroll up, you can hide like, and this is what I'm saying on the iterative releases. You can hide anything in Chrome 95, and then in Chrome 96. They now have the ability where you can like explicitly go and just turn off CORS errors, so they don't even like appear at all. So yeah, and then if you want to see like how they do this stuff, like again, there's a link to this video. So there was a long one because I had to cover 2 dev tools. What are you guys excited about? And as I said, as high level or low level as you like. It could be brand new, not out yet, or been out for a while. What are you guys excited about? Yes.
At a conference a few months ago, I saw that the CSS feature for container queries, so you know how you have media queries, instead of doing it so that it's depending on the size of whatever element you put it on, that's coming to, I think right now it's in Chrome Canary behind the feature flag, so it's apparently going to happen maybe this next year. I think that would make it a lot easier to make responsive styles based on how your things are rendering rather than the device that you're using.
Awesome. Yeah, so for those that couldn't hear on the stream, CSS responsive queries that are relative to the containers that they're in, right? And that, as I was saying about like their iterative releases, makes sense because they've been doing for a while, and we covered this in like past ones. They've been doing for a while like all different kinds of ways to like visually inspect the way that CSS properties are rendering, and you can like toggle between them and see their actual boxes and stuff. So that totally makes sense that they're like going down that road. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. So right now you think it's probably it's still on the Canary releases?
Yeah, I think it's Canary behind the feature flag, so
Cool.
not soon.
Yeah, but still something to look out for. Nice. What else are you guys excited about?
I got to nerd out today on Grafana.
Oh, yeah.
I've always just kind of done, local implementations of Grafana, which is, if you haven't used it, it is super awesome for visualizing your data quickly if you've got a lot of time series type data. Because traditionally I've always had all of this data and then I've got to wire up chart.js or D3 or something and then I get to see it.
Yeah.
But Grafana lets you just right out of the box visualize that data. So I was playing with the new AWS managed Grafana service that uses AWS single sign-on.
Cool.
So I don't know how old it is, but I just discovered it today and I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. And then when you were looking into that, both for Grafana specifically, and then for this AWS managed stuff, where did you find your information for it? Like, where's a good place if somebody wants to do that kind of thing that they can get started?
Grafana website
Cool.
is really good, and then if you Google AWS Grafana, it comes right up.
Cool. And so for that, because like with Grafana, how you can have like different like dashboard templates, is that what the AWS one was? Like a dashboard template that you plugged in?
It's identical. It's got different user management, but as far as creating dashboards, it's identical to the same stuff that we've always done, pulling and creating Grafana dashboards.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, that's neat. What else are you guys excited about?
And it's a Grafana.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can you say the AWS hegemony?
The what? What's that? Oh,
What's that?
I don't know.
So the AWS hegemony.
They're taking over
Go,
the
good
world.
luck spelling hegemony.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'll let Matt take that one. I'll let Matt
I don't
take that
know.
one.
Mike's actually editing the doc for me. Thank you.
It definitely looks like you're doing it. This is like when you have the big Marshall stack on the stage and the tiny amp in the back.
Don't write that. Jeez, what's wrong with you?
We're doing like a full on like Milli Vanilli here with Matt's just like going like this and like Mike's actually typing it over in the
What
corner.
it looks like.
It's how I code too.
What's that?
It's how I code too.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's what peer programming is, right? Yeah.
Okay, so I've struggled a little bit lately with like great TypeScript books. I'm writing a TypeScript curriculum right now, and like there's one really good one by Boris. It's based on the name. It's an O'Reilly book, killer book, but there's not a lot of other really good TypeScript books. And I think I figured out why yesterday. Oh my God, the docs are amazing. They are the single best docs on the entire web.
Oh, cool.
And it does a really interesting thing where to get into it, there's like 5 different starter guides that are like, are you new to programming? Are you a JavaScript developer?
Oh.
Are you a Java or C# developer? Or are you a functional developer?
Wow.
And so like your first 10 minutes of it is like in whatever like paradigm you kind of live in.
Yeah.
And then it like kicks you into the guides, which are also like amazingly well written.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, you know JavaScript, let's teach you types. Or it's
No,
like,
and
oh,
then-
yeah, you come from Java, like here's how we do it
And
here.
I read
Like,
all
yeah,
of them.
that's
and
awesome.
they're so like what they're able to assume that you know on each of them makes all of them so much tighter.
That's so cool. Nice. JS docs, or rather TypeScript docs for the win. Hell yeah. There's another hand that went up. Unless somebody was about to say the exact same thing. Yes.
No. Advent of Code starts tonight.
The what?
Advent of Code.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone hasn't heard of it, it's like little coding challenges throughout December.
Cool.
Really fun kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Does it
So
start
like an
today
advent
or does it
calendar
start
to, like,
tomorrow?
It starts tonight at midnight
Minute.
Eastern time, so 10 o'clock
Sure.
here.
Nice.
Technicalities, I like it.
Yes.
Nice. Sure.
So if you haven't heard about it, just check it out. It's really cool.
So they want you to code on Christmas then?
Basically.
Well, it's leading up to Christmas. It's an advent. It's an advent coding
Because
calendar.
It stops right at Christmas.
Right.
Or
If
10
you
p.m.
want to cheat,
the day before
yeah,
Christmas.
exactly. Well, you could reach out to your friends in Australia and just get the answers a day ahead of time, right? All right. That's cool though. So now, so we don't have a meetup in December. Which, did we talk about that? I wasn't listening. Well, no, I literally wasn't because
No.
I was like plugged in.
So no, traditionally we do not have one in December because normally it falls on the 25th or the day before or day after. So guess what doesn't normally have attendees?
Right.
So no, December we are skipping. What we do, if you have not seen or been to the Develop Denver Happy Hour, I recommend you go. It's the first Tuesday of every month. Kyle, is that right?
The happy hour, second Tuesday
Second
of every month.
Glad someone corrected me. Second Tuesday of every month. So please recommend going to that. It's always a good time. It's not any talks or anything. It is literally drinking and nerding out, which is the best.
And you'll probably see a lot of the same faces that are here tonight. But it's only the beer part.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, what the hell did I come here for?
The
Cool.
company?
I got one more.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I got to play with Vue progressive web applications today.
Sure.
I got to nerd out on a lot of stuff today. This was
Congratulations. It sounds like a good day.
So the Vue CLI let me just basically create out of the box a progressive web application with the service worker already ready to go. But I'm now trying to figure out how to properly bust that service worker if you push code. So if anybody's got suggestions and experience on that, that would be super helpful. Because there seems like a lot of wrong ways to do it.
Sure.
So if people have experience.
It sounds like Kyle has strong opinions on this topic.
No, I had a bum service worker on the Develop Denver site that we had just sent out a huge blast to 1,000 people, and they all loaded up bad service workers, so they couldn't see any updates. That was a real fun one.
Yes.
TLDR, send them a different link that murders the service worker and then redirects to your new app with a good service worker.
Oh wow.
And so it was invisible to the users.
Yeah.
I just gave them a cool, it was 2018 or whatever URL, and they go to that, kills off the service workers, redirects back to the new app.
Wow. So you had to do a lot.
Oh, it sucks. It's the only thing that sucks about service workers is if you get them wrong, you're living with that failure for very long.
That's right. That's why you have to get it right when you start the app.
Exactly.
Just like HSQS.
So I had two things to add to the list. React 18 is in beta, if you're into React. Also to TypeScript documentation. Yes, their docs are also badass. If you're having trouble understanding TypeScript, the errors sometimes don't mean shit, and it's really hard to track down. I recommend the UI.dev TypeScript course. I work for Etna Digital. We had the entire engineering team take it because we were migrating to TypeScript. It made so much more sense. So definitely recommend that if you're trying to learn TypeScript.
Sweet. Let's do maybe one or two more, and then we'll call it. Let's do one or two more things you guys are excited about.
Just saying that we're requiring masks unless you're speaking. If you don't have a mask, I have extras up here.
Mike, what are you excited about this month? How's the
His new job.
how's the pipeline operator coming along?
Great question.
Let's do one more, guys. One more thing you're excited about anything at all with coding. Coding adjacent. Fun houseplant you just bought. No one? Come on. Yes.
I'm brand new to coding.
Yes.
I'm doing a boot camp right now, and just switched from vanilla JavaScript to React, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's like the mind exploding jump, right?
Yeah.
Wait, you get all this for free? Yeah. Congratulations. Hell yeah. Which school are you in?
Turing.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Data binding. Congratulations. All right. Cool. So I think we're good. Oh yes. Where are we at?
It's still stage 2. Phase
Okay.
2 stage 2.
We'll keep
It's
checking in every
stages.
month. We'll shepherd this little buddy, into This is the standard. Sweet.
There was something released, I think, this month called Remix. I don't know if anybody else saw that.
Is that where they just put like the rap air horn into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
But
When you have an error while compiling, that's what it plays that.
It's
That
like,
would be a cool thing. But yeah, Remix actually seems pretty cool. It's like the way that they described it was you get back to just like web fundamentals while still using React. So if you create a form, it will still allow you to submit the form without JavaScript. So like if you do React forms, it's like everything is bound, bound to like an on click, but with an HTML form, you just hit submit and it goes. Like it collects everything and sends it to your email. So there's more to it. That was like the one thing that I picked up on in like 2 hours of watching the videos.
sweet.
I write a bunch of nonsense, but trust me, I research all of it and put the actual links and don't put any of it. This is theatrics.
Also, there's a talk about it next month at the React meetup.
Hey, no plugging other meet. Just kidding.
Oh, well, yeah. Way to like big time us because they already know what their talks are a month ahead of time. Yeah, all right. Anyway, go ahead, Kyle.
Kenzie Dodds is speaking at React next month.
Wait, what?
Yeah, dude, and it was like
Oh, we're
he's
small
talking
time.
about Remix because he just joined the team a week ago and it turned into like one of those WWE like heel turns or something. It's like, oh, and we got Kent Dodds on the team now. Yeah, Remix is another Ryan Florence.
Nice. We're gonna see Ken Dodds like smash Will Klein over there with a
Yeah.
chair. Yeah, awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Not better. Cool. Job announcements. Does anyone have any job announcements they would like to announce?
Yes. So, for those that know me, I'm Bill. I'm the tech lead, JavaScript tech lead at LIQ. We have lots of JavaScript positions open. We've got lots of C# Microsoft positions open. There's pretty much everything open. So if you can do a thing, you should probably apply at LIQ.
Does breathing count?
I think we have a job opening for that as well. It doesn't pay that well though.
I don't know if I can take it as a passive income.
LIQ. And our main office is located right next to Coors Field.
Cool.
So we're pretty close to here.
Speaking of breathing, I work for a company called Calm.com, which is a meditation app, and we're hiring for the team that I'm on, which is B2B services, so getting companies to hear all of their employees calm and the benefits. So if that's interesting, and you work with web technology, I should say you're here, let me know.
Cool. Anyone else have job? Yeah, go for it.
So I'm with a company called Asimov. We're in the synthetic biology space, so if you want to live in a world where you don't just read DNA, but read, write, and execute, talk to us. We hire software engineers of all types. It doesn't matter if you have a background in biology or not. So, let's talk to you.
You would be shocked how many engineers have some different backgrounds. Who else? I'll go. So I work for Aetna Digital, so Aetna Health Insurance. We are always looking for engineers, juniors, mid-levels, and seniors, staff, principal, name it. We usually have some kind of job opening. So if you're interested in helping people's health, or at least covering all the costs in health, hit me up. We can talk. It's a good place.
Name again?
What's that?
The name again?
Aetna?
Oh, yeah. AETA.
Cool. Well,
Before we move on, like if you have a job announcement, make sure that you post it in the comments section of today's meetup for people that are following along at home or people that are here that might not be able to catch up with you before the end of the
yeah, because I can tweet that out later on our Twitter account. So I was like, why did that require like extra context or
What's the
whatever?
website for that?
I forget. I think it's tweeters.com.
Verb.com.
Awesome. Well, because we are in person, God knows for how long with variants and whatnot. Code of conduct. Be excellent to each other. Bill and Ted. Also be inclusive. Like, please invite others to chat. Like, I know at the end of these we get like little circles, and then you just see like one or two people like kind of standing outside the circle. Invite them in. Come on, we're not everyone's an extrovert. I'm a weirdo. I'm an extrovert. Also, please no statement questions like, well, here's what I think, or this is how I would have done. Like, our presenters like put a lot of work into this stuff, and like to do that is a really dick move. Like, let's just say what it is. That's the abridged version of the code of conduct. If you'd like to see the full code of conduct, go to DenverScript.com. Guess what? It's also like a link farm to our YouTube channel, donation page, and other things. Oh yeah, code of conduct. Call for speakers. We're always looking for new speakers. Obviously, we're not looking for December, so I feel like we have a January already lined up, but I'll have to look at that. But next year, I think we have plenty of openings already, so I do recommend, like, if you're looking to get into talking, like, you know, we have the 8 to 10 minute slot for short talks. Like, if you're worried about trying to, like, get into public speaking, it's a perfect time. Also, engineers are pretty, like, forgiving on, like, people speaking, because they're out there like, God damn, I'm glad it's not me. I hate speaking. So no one's going to look bad upon you. They're like, man, that brave soul. So please. And also, if you're if you're wanting to get into speaking, please reach out to Mike, Guillermo, or myself. Whole reason I even started giving conference talks or starting this meetup was getting back to the community for developers, but also I sucked at public speaking, and alcohol is a great way to get into it.
And also, if you're like a junior developer, you're relatively new, or you're in a boot camp, right? Like, there is no barrier to entry here. Like, if it's like a new thing you just learned about how to learn a new thing, or a new framework you picked up on, or like, here's how I've approached learning whatever. You know, we saw like for example, how many people are like juniors in the audience? Yeah, exactly, right? So like, you'll be giving a presentation where like roughly a third to a half the people are also juniors, right? So like, don't feel like you have to be a senior engineer to give a talk. Let us know you want to do a short talk and do it on, you know, something you're comfortable on or something that you're excited to learn, and then present on that.
So to give you an example, the times when I give conference talks, I pick something that I'm interested in, but I never have time to do it. So I'm like, okay, I am now committed to doing that. And then I give myself basically a 30-day deep dive into doing something with that technology. And basically I make all the mistakes so you don't have to, and I show like that journey, because not only does that, one, absolve me from saying I'm an expert in this, it's just like most people are trying to get into a technology of some way and they just don't know where to start. So like, you can kind of be the guinea pig.
I'll also say that like people come into tech from a lot of different angles, like college or boot camps or self-taught and lots of different things. So something that you might think is really simple, and it is, like, still might be something new to somebody who's been doing this a very long time. The industry changes pretty rapidly, so the new way that you got into it might be brand new to somebody who's been doing this 10 or 15 years. So like,
for example, I've been doing this for 15 years, and there were several things said in what's going on in JavaScript land, like the responsive media queries based on relatives. I'm like, that's a thing? You learn something new. Web is such a all technologies, very vast. Like, no one can know everything, and I'm just a professional Googler is basically my job. So please submit talks. Reach out to either one of us if you're interested. If not, you can go to DenverScript.com, click the link for submit a talk, and we'll reach out to you once you've submitted. So, Toy, please do it. So I don't have to keep pinging Kyle to give me a talk. Awesome. So the first talk tonight, and I'm sorry, Matt, I just can't remember the titles. Office automation with Azure and SignalR. And I'm sure I'm saying it completely wrong.
That's okay. I'm going to do my best to say it right.
And while we try and get Matt set up with the live stream, this is a great time to get a beverage or use the restroom, which there are 2 restrooms, one on each side of the kitchen. Yeah. Thank you.
It's in your I've had absolutely never. I didn't hate it, but I've never. Yeah. That's what I said. Yeah, that looks awesome. Actually, that's a cool combination.
Yeah, you guys got whatever you're doing.
Okay. Read that.
It started made a thing up there.
You try unplug it and plug it back in the standard
Standard operating procedure.
Even though it's USB-C, maybe flip it upside down.
Never mind. It's trying.
I know. It
Mine's doing something.
Yeah, it's USB-C.
It's good to have.
I read an article.
Huh? What? No, I appreciate it. No, it's
on the sheet. It's almost created biological work. That it uses to replicate.
It's also most cells do that by naturally. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
we actually.
because that's what cells do, right? That's
Exactly.
what's designed and directed. They said, most movies of robots is like, metal and electricity. But that's not necessarily the definition of a robot. A robot is something that
Because you and I sound like.
can go out and serve a function. Yeah, they said they put it, so it was like a big V shape. They built a big V shaped scoop.
It's like the most annoying thing. So
Right
it only
proteins
works
and then consume those proteins.
under some weird situation, and then it's just like
Yeah, who knows what city it is?
so annoying.
What kind of stuff are you biology?
Yeah, this is like literally the whole song again. I mean, worst case, we'll take it plugged in directly. It just sucks that this is the whole thing.
This is such a shitty thing. I finally
Oh, I guess that
Right, it works, but it's not directly. It's not what we're trying to do. Right. So what I want to do is just go back to this group. So we're good there.
We're almost there. We're developers. You have to break stuff before it works.
Seriously. Alright, well, let's plug it directly in.
Okay. Sure. You want to give me a thumbs up?
like you're bridging the gap between a lot of this stuff. Are you doing any like post-processing of data?
Oh my god.
That's also really kind of
What's that? I can't read your lips. I can't hear anything from here. It's all it's like Charlie Brown teachers. All set? All right. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to keep this quick because we've had some delays. I was already going to try to keep it quick. See how it goes.
You're good.
My name is...
Technology failed.
That's right. My name is Matt Nordberg. I'm a developer at DevIQ, a little shop just down here in the ballpark neighborhood. And I had the opportunity a couple months ago to use some new technology, new to me technology. And I'm a sucker for integrations. I love integrating things. So I thought this would be fun to share and talk about how it all works together. The technologies we're talking about are Office, JavaScript APIs for Microsoft Office, along with some Azure cloud technologies that help support it. The client is BBG. That's why it's called that. I had put together this presentation for an internal thing. The client is BBG. They're a real estate valuation and assessment company. So they put together reports for prospective commercial real estate buyers to learn all about it. They put together hundreds and hundreds of data points into a comprehensive report. So the way they do that is to have an Excel spreadsheet and gather all the data and then dump that into a Word document for their clients. As you can imagine, that's a big, heavy, ungainly process. They had some tools to do it, but it was messy, it was slow, it was failing all the time, it wasn't working well. So we worked with them to create Office add-in integrations. The idea was to have something that could extend any Office tool and move a bunch of data from an Excel spreadsheet to a Word document in kind of a predefined, one-click, almost automatic sort of way. So there are a few pieces to this. The first, maybe the most interesting, is the Office integration. Now, Microsoft gives us an open source API called their JavaScript API. I'm sorry, I'm talking about the wrong thing. First of all, Office add-ins. Basically what this is a single page application, JavaScript website, what we're all used to, running in a little browser inside the context of the Office tool. So inside your Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint or whatever you have. It's really amazingly simple. We build a website and create what they call a manifest to define how it's going to interact with the document, where you can find it, all of that stuff. And it ends up in a pane in your tool. These are available just like regular websites. We had ours hosted in Azure. It can be any cloud hosting. It's just something you get to on the web, and then it's made available as an add-in. So what it ends up looking like is like this is your Word document, and you have the document here on the side, and this pane, you open it up from the toolbar, and you have your little website running there just inside Microsoft Office, which is super cool. This is what we did. You can see it's really simple. It's just buttons, some fields, just splash screen, a couple of things you can do here. But what's under the hood is really interesting. That's where the JavaScript APIs come in. Microsoft has exposed APIs for all of the objects and methods and everything you need to query and manipulate everything in Office. Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint slides, anything you want. This is what it looks like kind of under the covers. You can see how simple this is. Basically, we get the context of the document. This is like the Word window that you're looking in. And then you can query that. Find whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe that's a document or a paragraph, or in this case, it's a content control, like a named text box. You query that. In this case, we're going to find it or create it if it doesn't exist. And then we put in the data. Depending on what type of data it is, we populate that control with some data that we've gotten from Excel. And then it's a matter of syncing the document, and that actually updates your Word document or whatever you're working with, and updates it in real time. So that gives you complete control over not only finding what's in the document, but manipulating it and then deciding when it's going to update back to the document. The second piece of this, of course, you need to get data from somewhere if you're going to put it into a document. So we leveraged Azure Functions to do this. If you're not familiar with Azure Functions, it's very simple. It's just a little bit of code running in the cloud, serverless function. We use JavaScript for this. And so the way it worked was you could export data from the Excel add-in. A function would process it, send it to Azure Blob Storage, just dump it into a blob in the cloud. And then that would trigger an update processed by a separate function for the Word add-in to pull the data and interact with that JavaScript API and put it into the document. The last piece of it, another interesting one, is SignalR. If you're not familiar, SignalR is a real-time event hub for front-end web stuff. This was my first time working professionally with SignalR, and I thought it was super cool. It's very simple in concept. Basically, you open up a connection with a SignalR hub, and then listen for events. You send events or listen for events and act on it when the event happens. So the way this worked in our application was, obviously you have the functions handling actually moving the data, but then we use SignalR for communication. Each Office add-in opened up a connection, and then you could click a button in one add-in, send a SignalR event to the other saying it's time to send some data. Or click a button in the Excel add-in and say, we're going to send it, and then the Word document gets it. And that eventing tells each application what's going on, so the same thing happens in real time in the two applications. This could be side by side on your own machine, or it could be across the world. It doesn't matter. This is what the SignalR connection looks like under the covers. Again, you can see it's very simple what's going on here. Really, it opens up a connection. This bit just keeps it open in case it closes, so there's always a connection available. And then listens for an event, and when that event comes through, this is an event that's coming from Excel saying you have some data now. Now it's going to go query that data from blob storage, go get it, the Azure function is going to process it, and it plugs it into the Word document. Oh no, that's not going to work. I had a little demo of how it actually works, and I'm very sorry it doesn't look like it's going to let me play it. But that's it. That's the whole structure, front to back. Unfortunately, I think the demo kind of tied together the way it all works, but why don't you ask me any questions or comments about that? Yeah, Bill.
So you're able to parse through a Word document, right, and extract certain sections. How do you identify that that's the section that you actually want?
That's a great question.
Is there tags or something that you're putting in your Word document?
You can. So in this case, that's how we did it. There was a Word document, kind of a template document created with text controls, and each one of them had a name. And then they had corresponding names in the Excel spreadsheet, so you could pull whatever is named that in the Excel spreadsheet and plug it into the same text control in the Word document. There are other ways of querying things. You can find pages by number or paragraphs by position or things with a certain text or all kinds of things like that. Good question. What else? Yeah.
I happen to work with Matt on the project, so it's a leading question, but can you talk a little bit about the deployment? Do you recall how we handled that?
Vaguely. As I say, it's been a couple months.
Actually, you know what? I think you handled the deployment for the add-in.
Eric, great answer.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to talk about except that it you know, with the Microsoft Enterprise, it was relatively easy to get that out into the users.
That's right.
Without going into a public market.
There are basically two ways to expose these add-ins for use. You can put it in a public library, and then when you go in your Office toolbar and look for add-ins, it's there, and you can search for it, and it's available. In this case, we were building it for a company, so you can make it available in their Microsoft library of tools for enterprise use and not public use. So that was that was an interesting use case.
A question: since I sold my soul to AWS, I actually have no idea what SignalR is. So, could you talk about like what does SignalR do?
Yeah. As I say, the concept is really very simple. It opens up a persistent connection between browser client and an event hub. So rather than, what that allows you to do is, rather than making requests to some endpoint, it opens up your endpoint to get events whenever they come in. So it essentially opens up your client to be able to take requests from
Is it like a
another source.
eventing system?
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah,
think about it as
that's all it is.
JS, basically. Equivalent product of the .NET.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
When do you think is a good use case, like when you would recommend for people to consider this type of apps?
These type of apps? Like which kind specifically?
I guess add-ins where you can do the app inside of a document.
Yeah. That's a good question. I'm not sure I've thought about a lot of use cases besides the one that was presented to me. Filling in data is, I think, the most obvious use case. If you don't want to write data, it's coming from somewhere. Getting it into a Word document is not easy, and this makes it. There are other ways to do that using like more proprietary Microsoft kind of tools, but this exposes it to a more general developer audience. So putting data into the document is one thing. The other really powerful thing that Office APIs do is styling everything. It can control all the styles. So if you wanted to, I'm not sure exactly what the use case would be, but if you wanted to have tools to like create documents or templates that look a certain way, or that dynamically render based on what you're doing, that's certainly possible with this. So basically what it allows you to do is programmatically create things. Another thing you can do that maybe is the more common use case is reacting to what's in your document. So finding things on the web based on what's in your document, or connecting to your particular services based on your document content. That's another common use case, I think. Yeah.
Did you have to customize styles in the documents a lot, and if so, like how hard was that?
Yeah, I didn't do it a lot because I was using a template already provided by the client, so I used the template styles. I did enough to find that it was it's accessible. It was a little bit ungainly. It's definitely like I'm a JavaScript, CSS kind of guy. I love UI work. It was nothing like doing markup and styles yourself. It's definitely more unwieldy than writing your own CSS. To me, it was a lot like if you've ever done like old Forms apps or Xamarin or things like that, where you're like programmatically creating UI. It's a lot like that. Yeah, good questions. Anything else?
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Matt.
guys.
Again, while we try and get those live stream hook up, going correctly. Yeah, next up, who knew embedding SSO authenticated dashboards would be so much fun? Jonathan.
This guy does.
Is he setting up?
It's a Saturday night thing for you, isn't it?
No. Sadly, no.
Yeah,
Have
I'm
you plug
gonna
into that guy directly first, just make sure that you're good there, and then we'll get the picture.
Oh, I'm writing a curriculum. I'm an educator, and I'm fine with TypeScript, but I like trying to digest a bunch of different sources and combine them and get the best. I'm like, there's aren't that many good TypeScript books. Like I looked at a few of them. I read the Purple's one, Code Color.
Oh, right.
But one day it's like, I guess I've never really looked at the docs. It was like jumped at the floor last night. I was like, these are the best docs I've ever read. And so like,
So at some of them, it's a PhD.
it's so well done.
In
And so
mechanical engineering with a chemistry background. So he's doing 10 to 8
So that is rather as expected. That should work. Now we're gonna try this guy.
Oh yeah.
So it sounds like that's kind of
That's right.
you've got these massive backlog services.
And like the functional introduction to it helped a lot of that. It was like, here's all the traffic that is coming to it.
He does. So here's the
capsules.
Do you mind unplugging this?
Right, exactly. Like, I had an iPad.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if something exists like that. Probably proprietary.
Yeah.
They're just doing if I were a lawyer, I'd want to
Alright, that's fine. Let's make this straight. That's unfortunate. But we have one more try. If this isn't working, let's make it close.
I've seen more named for use. Like, I don't know if you've seen some like that are designed to uses where they like store and collaborate on all the creative resources. They have these apps that they provide where it keeps your document in sync with your graphic
Our bridge today won't scale that. So we got to do something like that.
Yeah.
So we can still like let me know when you want to start.
So we just there's the computing of it, and then there's just like the visualization. I have never even wrapped your head around.
All right, hey y'all. I'm Jonathan Curran. I'm here to talk about SSO and iframes. Not sexy, but necessary sometimes. So I've got a repo posted. If you pretty much all the code, all the examples, everything, every step of it is there. And along with that, on that repo, I have written up some like a little README that explains a few things about that, a bunch of other stuff that we'll get into. I'm expecting this to be sort of basically doing this live. So as I'm doing this, please ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, you're gonna miss a bunch. And I'm gonna try and explain as much as I can. But please, 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 just feel free to interrupt and just ask questions. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so let's get started here. Don't care about that. Well, keep that. All right, so let's say you basically get tasked with saying, hey, go implement SSO. Right, you're like, wait, what is SSO? Right, single sign-on, that's what it stands for. And single sign-on, typically in modern enterprise, it's done with either
OIDC/OAuth2 acronyms. Don't worry about them too much. Or SAML. They're basically two rough protocols for doing identity management, roughly, and for your application to interact with that identity provider is what they call them, right? So you can have like a SAML server or an OIDC OAuth2 server, and those basically act as, hey, who are you, roughly? That's their purpose. And your website will integrate with them to sort of figure out who is this current user who's accessing my machine or accessing my system. So I've gone ahead and made a local application whereby, let me see if I can remember this. Shortcuts. I don't remember. Moving it there, here, there, up. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go run it. And literally go run is in the name, but it's because I'm using Go. Not to matter. That part's not necessarily that important. So let's put this away. And first thing I'll sort of show off is I've got this working over here. This little URL called https app.vcap.me. And you're like, Jonathan, what is this URL? It looks suspicious. And you should be like, yes, that does look suspicious. Because app.vcap.me is one of a few domains and subdomains that always resolves to localhost 127.0.0.1. Right? So here, I'll just pull this up and so you can take a look. Increase the font size. And let's look up foobar.vcap.me. And you'll see that it sort of resolves to 127.0.0.1. And there's a couple other ones, foobar.vh.me. So LVH is the domain, subdomains, and localtest.me. And this one is up here, again, 127.0.0.1. Now, why is this important? Based on the information that's on the screen. Anyone want to hazard a guess?
Because your SSO cares what domain it's coming from.
Yes, your SSO provider, your identity provider cares which website is about to talk to it. That's one, right? And if you're doing localhost development, you can absolutely just use localhost as the domain. That's not an issue with that. What I find really fascinating about these three domains and any subdomains off of them is that you can use a nice little tool called MakeCert that can basically create SSL signed certificates for these domains locally, and they're all signed with SSL. Now you're wondering, why is that important, Jonathan? And the reason for that is because it helps doing a whole bunch of testing related to SSL related things to be done on your local machine. And that's super important. So the way I sort of ended up doing this is there's this one little command I wrote run. What's happening? If I can move this. All right. Roughly, I'm just installing this thing, MakeCert, and I'm calling MakeCert, dump some files basically, and create self-signed certs for these three wildcard domains. Roughly, right? So what that gives me is a couple of PEM files. And this, when you start to do TLS implementation, this is the de facto sort of way. You're going to have to create some certificates, you're going to have to load them. Some process somewhere is going to have to serve that up. Doesn't matter what it is. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this helps with local development. And if you're going to do this in the future, at some point, some stage, you want to integrate some SSO thing, you want to debug some SSO related issues, you want to see why this frame or this domain or this cookie isn't working properly, you're going to need something like this. You're going to need a local environment to test this on. Unless you want to test in production, that's entirely up to you. So, all right, so let's assume first step is you've got that domain, you've got the local host. Yes, back there.
A quick question on those domains. Are those, like, do you locally set those up for local hosts, or they're like and DNS resolver, are they like something not for local hosts?
Great question. So the question is, are these things you have to set up in, for example, an Etsy host, right? Because that's a common tactic, this go edit your etc host file, right? In here, you'll see that I've got some crap in here that I manually added. No, those aren't in this file. Those are DNS resolved that are not within my control. If you want to, you can easily set up your own domain to do the exact same thing. These are just available, and I've used them for a while, so less work for me, better for everyone.
Did you say that the certs that are generated are self-signed certificates?
Yes, they are. What ends up happening is MakeCert will actually create a root certificate, install it locally into your machine, and so whenever you access stuff in your browser for those domains that it's signed, those appear to be valid. Anyone else connecting to your machine will see a self-signed issue. Self-signed cert.
Gotcha. But you don't have that problem.
I don't have that problem. So, yeah. All right, this is like step 0. That's where we're starting. All right, so assume we've got SSO plugged in, right? You're like, okay, well, Jonathan, how do you go plug in like SSO? For example, like I am currently using GitLab as my SSO provider, and you can totally set that up. You can go into GitLab and create a new application, and it's all happy to give you like an OIDC, like client cert. This ID and secret, I'm going to delete by tonight, so it doesn't really matter. Feel free to copy it. I don't really care. But long story short, that's the URL of this application that GitLab is going to send us back to, more or less. All right, enough about SSO. Let's move on to the main meat subject. Anyone have any questions? Great. All right, so let's assume you go implement that, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to, actually, let me back up. How many of y'all use Chrome as your primary browser? Wow, that is the majority of the room. All right, let's see what happens. So let's go implement this. What we're going to basically do is access our site. Our site should take us to the IDP, the identity provider. We should sign in, and then we should get sent back here. Right? That's what we're hoping for. So punch that in. It's going to GitLab. It's like, hey, you need to sign in. GitLab's like, oh, you need to do your thing. It does its dance, comes back to my website, and voila, now I have a secret chart. Right, great, hooray, it works. I've got SSO working. So now, you get a requirement saying, hey, great that you got SSO plugged in. Now we really would like you to go plug that into an iframe somewhere in some other dashboard, or like, I don't know, Confluence, or what's the Microsoft one? That SharePoint, right? Or like some other thing, like go surface this minimal part of your application, go put it over there, but we also want to be able to basically say, if you don't have access, you can't see it. And access is controlled by this website, right? Does that feel like a sane requirement?
Totally.
Someone back there says no.
I could see it. I could see it coming up, yeah.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It doesn't matter if it's saying somebody's going to ask for it.
Someone's going to ask for it, right? So this is really a popular thing to do for any kind of dashboarding thing. Like if you have multiple dashboards all aggregating in the same place from different websites, that kind of thing, you don't want to go write any of that manually. That already exists. Just put them all in the same place, right? That's anyway. So I've got app vcap me, right? And so the other one where we're going to go basically local test.me. Local testing, put a period there. All right, so in here, I've got an embed HTML file. I'm just going to open that up. And again, you'll notice that this is dashboards.localtest.me, HTTPS, no problem, right? This is a different domain entirely. So that's what we're dealing with them here. Let's say you have SharePoint running somewhere else or Confluence running somewhere else, and you want to embed this dashboard that's running elsewhere into that other place, right? So we'll open up embed.html, and we're like, what the heck is going on, right? Let's take a look at our code. Let's take a look at what's happening here. It's not Sublime. It's this guy. Right? This is our code. This is all we have. Let me make that bigger. Right? This is all we have. All we have is, hey, just create an iframe and put that in there. Right? That's literally it. Nothing more. But we see an error over here, or rather a broken page. Now, it says GitLab refused to connect. What the heck is going on? So we open our developer console, and then down here we basically see refuse to frame GitLab because yada, yada, yada. Long story short is GitLab uses content security policy, or there's multiple ways of basically saying you are not allowed to embed my site into your site. And this is what GitLab is doing, right? This totally makes sense. as a like enterprise business kind of thing or any kind of application, you sometimes may not want to allow other people to embed your site into somewhere else, because it can kind of seem sketchy sometimes, right? Imagine you have to log into GitLab and like, I don't know, one of those websites with like 1,000 GIFs on them or something like that. It just seems wrong, right? Like it's probably like something sneaky going on, but not a good idea. So now what do you do? You're like, sorry, can't implement this. Right? No, not at all. What you can basically do, the reason for this is, all that really says is, hey, you're not allowed to embed this site into the iframe. You're not allowed to put GitLab in an iframe. So what you can do is actually pop that out into a new window, allow that sign-in to happen, and try and come back to your application, right? You can basically say, you know, go sign in GitLab on a new web page, come back to us, and let's talk, right? So right now what's ends up happening is when we type this URL in, it automatically goes to GitLab and it comes back, right? That pattern isn't going to work here because this automatically takes you to GitLab, right? We don't want that. We want some sort of manual action so the user knows, hey, you're supposed to go over there, do your thing, and come back, right? So we basically need to implement a login button. Long story short, that's roughly what we have to do. So let's go change this. So let's go say login type. And if you're wondering what this is, I built a little REPL into my program so I can like play with the options at runtime, which is pretty cool. Never done this before, but it's pretty nice. All right, so now if we do this, we should be able to refresh our page here. And now it says not logged in. Great, right? On the non-embed site. So now if we click login, it takes us to GitLab, comes back, now we're signed in. So if we refresh our page here, let's see, go to embed. We have a login button. Cool. Let's click on that. Chris says, it's because we didn't actually implement the new window aspect of it. We just sort of said, take the user wherever they want to, right? So we need to change that. We need to basically change that, what's happening here. So let's change the login type to a window, explicit window. Yes, Spectre.
So to clarify, what you did is that rather than having the web page automatically send you to GitHub, or to GitLab, now it has a button to go to there, so it renders that stage first.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, that was the change there. And so the next step to do, okay, fine, we have this button. Now we actually need to open the window, right? So let's go take a look at that code. So let's see. Let's embed. This is our dashboard. Our dashboard is nothing but secret chart for user, show the chart, and this down here is some, don't worry about this. This is nothing to do with the actual functionality. This is just me refreshing the page if I make any changes locally. That's all that is. Don't ignore that. You'll see that everywhere. So the difference that we roughly end up having, this is basically the login screen here, which is just a login button, right? And for the window, this is what's going to be used now. The only thing we've sort of added here for the explicit login window part is this little bit of code which roughly says, ignore the stuff around it, which roughly says, if I get a message on the window and it says logged in, go ahead and close something somewhere. That's roughly what this says, right? This is the unlogged in window. This is like showing the login button. But if we get a message from somewhere, and in this case, if we get a message from ourselves, if that's kind of how you can read it, from another tab, another window, something like that, if we get a message saying logged in, you know what? Just go ahead and close that place that sent us that message, and where we're at locally, send us back home. Right? So what this is going to in fact do is if the user signs in a new window, that new window will be taken to the dashboard or the home page. That home page will then supposedly trigger a message saying, hey, I've signed in. And then this page, who's listening for those messages, says, oh, you signed in. Close you, and I'm going to take the user to home. Roughly, that's what's going to do. All right? So what's the flip side of this, right? This is just listening for a message and taking the user home if it gets a message. That's what this is. So how do we actually do that part? So that's in the dashboard code. In the dashboard code, all we're basically going to do is saying, if someone opened us, as in like if we have a window.opener, and the window.opener is a property set on the window if someone created a window for you on your behalf, basically. So all you're basically going to say is, hey, whoever created me, I'm just going to send them a login message. That's roughly it. So if somehow you land on this page, it sends a message to all the other pages that are connected to it on that same domain. It says, I've logged in. And now you're like, Jonathan, you've lost me a little bit. Let me see this in action. I actually want to see what the hell's going on here. Totally fair. So one step that sort of doesn't work, unfortunately, here. So we've changed our login type to window. So let's see what happens here. Let's refresh this page. Click login. Oh, hey, so you see, it opened a new window. We came back here, right? Great. Let's go try this in the embed thing. Click login, new window comes back, and still sitting here. What gives? Right? What the heck happened? Like, it's supposed to work. It works in the non-embedded version, but in the embedded version it doesn't. Right? Drink time. So the reason that it just doesn't, when it goes to in this new tab, it goes to GitLab, comes back, the page itself closes, so it realizes someone opened me, so I need to send them a message. And that part works. This part closes that other window, but then the redirect doesn't happen. It doesn't go back home. Or it goes home, but it thinks it's not logged in. Right? So let's trace sort of what ends up happening here. Let's clear this out. Where is the trash button?
Top left next to the record button.
There we go. All right. I don't use Chrome, you can tell. So let's preserve the log. Let's click login over here. Go back and see what ends up happening. So we'll see over here that this first app basically says, like when we clicked it, it basically said go home, and then home forwarded to login. That is not what we're expecting at all. We weren't expecting it to go to login. We're expecting it to go home, right? What gives? Turns out that the reason for this is in the way sort of cookies work. The same site cookie attribute, I've written this up in the README here, sort of what the three sort of attributes, three possible values of same site cookie, the attribute on a cookie is. Right? So by default, lax is the default of this particular attribute. And you're wondering, why does this matter? Right? So this matters a lot. This has mattered a lot more in recent years because browser vendors have sort of realized that, you know, sometimes users' privacy is kind of important. So, right? And so Safari's actually been taking the lead on this. Safari's like, hey, you know what? You can actually transfer a lot of state between URLs if you do a bunch of redirections and set cookies a bunch of different places, and then you can track everyone everywhere, right? And they're like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to enable that kind of behavior. And so Safari basically sort of led the charge on some same-site cookie stuff. Last year, Google basically said, we're going to change this strict, and they broke a bunch of websites for like 2 days across the web. It was insane. And then this third option was basically introduced later. Long story short, if you want the absolute details, I've listed them out here with some documentation at the bottom. Long story short is, this is the default, lax is the default. And you'll sort of see over here, it says, cookies are not sent on normal cross-site sub-requests, but are sent when the user is navigating to an origin site. So roughly what this part means is, if you manually click and follow a website, it'll send those links to you, no problem, or set those cookies for you, no problem. But if you're in an iframe somewhere, it's not going to happen. Like, no one's going to send it, the browser's not going to enable cookies to come back to an iframe from outside an iframe. That's what this roughly says. So since this is the default, this is why it doesn't work. If you set it to strict, it basically only enforces this aspect of it, which is cross-site sub-requests just don't work. So basically, if you're an iframe, you will never be able to do SSL. It's just, if you don't want your website working in an iframe, use this. So the other option you're sort of left with is use none. And none basically says, you know what, cookies are going to be sent in all contexts. But browsers, especially Safari, gets real finicky about like how you try to abuse this. It's like, hey, okay, I know you're trying to set this to none. I know you want cookies, but hold on a minute, basically. So let's see how this pans out, right? So let's change our cookie type, same side attribute to none, and see how it sort of affects the behavior of this in Chrome at least. So same site, we'll set this to none. And in here now, we're not logged in. Click login, we expect this to work. Hooray. All right. Now in here, I just refreshed the page and it worked. Like, what the hell, right? Just to sort of prove nothing's finicky, let's clear everything out. Reload the page. Now you see that we're not logged in. Now we click log in. You get taken to GitLab. GitLab, no cookies anywhere because I just cleared everything. Signing in again, comes back. Now it actually loads. Just like, okay, finally, it works in Chrome. Yes, ship it. And then you forget that there are other browsers you need to test. How many of you fall into that trap where like everything works locally or works in Chrome and then like it just doesn't work in anything else? Yeah, I can see a couple hands going up. Right. So what that really says to me is we as a collective of web folks really need to spread our wings out a little bit and play regularly in other browsers. Switch it up. Use Chrome one week, use Firefox the next, use Safari the next. I don't know. Figure it out. So let's go try and load these websites here in Firefox, and let's see what happens, right? Let's load this in Firefox. I'm not logged in. Great. Log in. GitLab wants to sign in. No problem. Sign in. Go back. Okay, this works. Not an issue. How about the embedded site, right? So we'll load that in here. It magically works. Sure, I guess that works, right? I don't want to delete everything in Firefox because I use it all the time. So let me go figure out how to.
Just do incognito, right?
What's that?
Incognito.
I could do that, yes. That's a great point. Signed in. GitLab again. Though I don't really have a GitLab password on me because I don't really know that. I don't really know most of my passwords except for like the one to my key manager, and that's it. Doesn't work. Right? Okay. That's a little telling. Why does it not work there? I don't know. All right, so let's go try it in Edge. Oops. I'll go change that later. At least now I've copied it so I can paste. What the hell did I just paste? That's not it.
That's the URL.
Yeah. All right. Hey, it works in Edge. That's not a bad thing. But Edge is basically Chrome, so just don't. Just ignore it. Actually, it's not. They do turn on some experimental features from time to time that does make it different than sort of mainline Chrome. So there can be quite some differences, actually, in how that sort of works. Well, let's go try this in Safari then. Again, same problem. Not a problem at this time, because you know I'm going to go clear it. All right, so Safari, well, let's just go try the non-signed in version, right? Or the non-iframe version. So here goes GitLab. Come on. Seriously? I'm hitting the thing. Why are you not working? Right. That seems to work. Cool. Now what about this guy? Nope. So, at least now in Chrome it's broken. Or, sorry, Chrome and Edge it works just fine. In Firefox and in Safari, it's broken. Right? So remember how I mentioned that when you set the same site attribute to none, some browsers have additional checks, right? Additional, basically ensure that you're not abusing the intended use case for same site none to actually do tracking, that it basically doesn't want users' privacy to sort of be nullified, if you will. So the not necessarily workaround, but sort of the fix to that, I sort of mentioned that in the README here, is that the embedding can be made to work with the assistance of the storage access API. So Safari's, again, sort of pioneering this in that they sort of developed a storage access API and browsers are sort of slowly adopting it. Chrome implemented this for like 2 months and then they rolled it back. I don't know. They have it open. They're like, yeah, we'll implement this at some point. They kind of run weird experiments like that sometimes. So what does that look like? Right? How do you sort of enable this use case in Firefox and in Safari? All right, so let's take a look at the differences here. So if I select these two, so this one we've seen, right, where the sort of the not logged in window closes itself and redirects it back home. We know that this works fine. So what's the difference between this one and the storage access one? Right? This is roughly the difference here. First point of note, I just added an ID here explicitly, just because I need to muck with that link itself later. And the other bit of roughly done over here is down here. Is that, can you all read this fine or should I increase? Let me increase the. Enhance. So I'm going to close the left hand side here because we kind of know the rough differences here. Let me open this. Oops. Right. All I've done down here is basically say, and so has storage access is one part of the storage access API. The other one is request storage access over here. There's just two pieces. That's it. There's only 2 API function calls. This is the surface area of the entire API. And they live off a document. They don't live off a window. They live off the current document because a window could have multiple documents technically, but most of them it never does. It's weird. So we basically say if the document, if storage access API is there, and if we are not the topmost window, as in we are embedded somewhere, right? That's roughly what this second predicate speaks to. Then it says go ahead and set up the login. What does setting up login look like? What does that mean? Right? So set up login, roughly what we have to do is the browser vendors are very peculiar about how you invoke this API and when you invoke it. Right? So you can basically invoke this first one, has storage access, anytime you want from anywhere, it doesn't really matter. Right? But roughly what this gives you is it lets you know if the browser, the window, actually has access to the storage access API or not. To back up one bit, the storage access API roughly points to how does the browser treat cookies across domains? How does it enable you to have cookie storage? That's what storage access is referring to. It's referring to cookie storage. Why they didn't call it cookie storage access? Maybe it was too long. I don't know, but like that's literally what it just refers to. So it just lets you know whether the browser or the user and/or has given us access, given us cookie storage access or not. That's roughly what it boils down to. And if it hasn't, then roughly what we end up doing is we do a bunch of magic, right? So roughly what we end up going saying is, hey, we'll go reference that login button that we had up there. We added the ID, right? And we'll basically listen on a click event of that button. So when the user goes and clicks it, we're going to do something. And the first thing we do is basically say, no, you're not going to do anything. Like we literally say, just prevent default, right? So like nothing is going to happen. But in here, here's the very important part, is that the very next thing we do is we invoke request storage access. So this API, the request storage access, must, otherwise it won't work, must be invoked based on a user interaction. If it is not part of a user interaction on your application, this won't work. So this has to be plugged in on a click. Basically, the browser vendors are like, look, this is only going to work if a user interacts with your application. This is not going to work if like you do it in the background somewhere. Because if you're doing this in the background, there's no point to this, right? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect users' privacy. If this runs in the background, it's a wash. So they're like, you have to call this API on a user-based interaction. whether it's a click, a touch, whatever, something, enter, key press, whatever it is, it needs to be initiated there. So once this resolves, what we'll actually do is we'll open the login page. We'll actually take that login button's URL, we'll just open a new window with it. So what will end up happening is it'll take it to GitLab, come back, and then hopefully the rest continues, right? Because at that point the browser is sort of confirmed, okay, you do have storage access, go ahead and do what you want to, right? Because the user's actually interacted with you. So I know this seems to be a legit request, roughly. And if that fails, we were either denied access, as in like the browser said, no, this is not happening, or in Safari specifically, Safari has a very interesting use case. I'll just show it to you. Yeah, it's roughly about it, right? So in the success path, storage access resolves after you click on something. You open a window, the rest just sort of falls into place and happens. Let's change this and see what happens. Right? So in here, we'll say login type explicit storage access. So in this case, we're going to call storage access. We do stuff. Let's refresh this. Click login. And Firefox is like, oh, look, you're opening a window. And the only reason it's there is because this is in this window. Incognito, yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't complain, really. Let's see. New window. Gimme. All right, so we're not logged in. Click that. Go there, come back. Voila. Works in Firefox now. Right? If we go inspect this, you'll see that I'm not lying. Because I could be, right? Take a look at storage. We'll take a look at app vcap me. Then down here, you'll see that this thing over here, the cookie is same site none. Ugh, go away. Cookie set the same site none, secure as well. When you set same site cookie to none, it has to be over SSL, and it has to have HTTP or secure, the secure flag on the cookie set to true as well. So again, another reason to ensure that you can do TLS SSL development locally, especially if you want to test stuff across domains. Follow the readme.
What permission was Incognito choking on?
I don't think it was choking on anything. It was just because it was trying to launch a new window in Incognito. It was like, no, I'm gonna stop that pop-up. But in this case, it's not Incognito, so it knows that.
It's just a pop-up.
Basically, that's what it thought it was, right? Right. All right, let's go take a look at Safari, see if that fixed it. So in Safari, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to clear everything. I'm going to remove everything there, do that, close that, refresh the page. All right, Safari, I'm going to go ahead and click login. And you're like, Jonathan, what the hell is happening? Why is nothing happening? Yeah, the reason for that is, I was telling you, open the second one. Now you'll see what's happening. So I click login. Now it's like, hey, please visit. It's too tiny up there. Please visit that website first. So in Safari, remember I said Safari is fun? Not really. So we actually have to open this website in a new window, log in there. Are you serious? Ugh. Come back here, and then when we finally go back here, refresh the page, click login. Now Safari gives us a nice little scary little warning. It says, I'll read it for you. It says, do you want to allow vcap.me to use cookies and website data while browsing localtest.me? This will allow vcap.me to track your activity. What an encouraging pop-up. Right? And again, Safari is doing this because it basically detected, because I cleared all the cookies and cleared everything to hold cache out, it basically detected that, hey, you've never visited this embedded site on its own before. You've just never done this. And so this, to us, looks like someone's trying to track your behavior because you've never seen this before. Are you sure you want to do this? That's roughly what this is. The UX could be far more improved, but this is what they give us. So in this case, we'll say allow it'll go to the login, come back here, and let me just go clear. Actually, sorry, go ahead.
So that wouldn't happen if you're using like SSO that you use familiarly. Say you're using your normal AWS login, you have a dashboard that uses that.
Yeah.
Then Safari's okay with it because it's something you normally use.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. If you were to visit the site before, so let's go do that. Right. Let's go clear all this data again. Password thing again. Whatever. Did I actually clear this? Did it go away? Yeah, go away. Safari. The UI sometimes on the Mac is super laggy. I don't know why the hell they do that. It's weird. I don't know. I'll leave it at that. All right, let's go visit this website first. Go log in here. That's not working. Work. Okay. Now we come back here. There's the page. Log in. First time it's like, hey, you sure you want to do this? But that worked, right? It didn't say go visit the site first. That pop-up just showed up. So that pop-up won't show if the user has visited that website. Here's another fun caveat. That pop-up won't show if the user has visited that website anytime in the last 30 days. But it will show if it's 31 days and they haven't visited that site before. So this actually isn't a great like dashboard experience, but it's the best you can get in Safari. Super quirky. And the code for this, roughly what I ended up doing, is that storage access code is still the same. Like this, nothing changed here. The only thing that changed was basically what was in the original embed site. So this was the original embed site. That was it, right? We were just iframing that thing. And what's in the new one is roughly this little message saying, please visit the website first. It was hidden. And then what we ended up doing is in our window, we're basically listening for an event, and if we get an event with never visited, then we go show that little link, hide the iframe, let the user go do its thing, then reload. Told you it was fun. And in the storage access bit, when we detected that we were denied access, that's when we sent that never visited message. So that's how that other counterpart of it knew that you had not visited this website before.
Could you be denied storage access for a different reason?
I haven't found that yet.
And like, is that error just like a generic error, or does it give you anything descriptive that you could work on?
None. No description. That
Awesome.
E is basically like if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. See? That's how much fun it was.
But it works.
It works. It
Ship
works. Yeah, now you can ship it. Ensure you test it on all different browsers, and now you can ship it. And then I have 2 minutes to spare, so hooray, finished the presentation on time as well. Yeah, so for that repo, that's where it's at. You can grab all the code there. This is the 3rd time I've implemented this. First time was last year with a coworker of mine called Bill. Bill and I worked on this together at a different company. A month ago, we found that our product in my current company doesn't support embedded dashboards and kind of need to because a lot of customers are clamoring for it. So my coworker Julie and I went and implemented this. And then I figured, I've done this twice. It's time to share this. So I'm sharing it with you. Hopefully this was slightly educational.
Oh yeah!
Thank you.
I don't have a question. It is breaking our rules. It is a statement, but this is therapeutic watching you like go through this process, right? It's like, yeah, this is what we do every day. It's kind of like, oh, it works. Oh, never mind. Shit, it doesn't work in that browser.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
It's been a cathartic exercise, like watching what must have been like a week for you, like going through this
Yeah.
whole thing. So thank you for sharing. It's cool.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
absolutely. Hopefully
Yeah.
everyone else's implementation is a lot quicker. Yeah, so that's all I have. Thanks, Joe.
Questions?
sorry, questions.
Is there any talk of putting an attribute on the iframe that would make it so you don't have to do all this? Because that's like what iframes are doing now, right? You just throw the attribute on the iframe to give it certain controls.
Yes, so that's a great question. So those attributes, especially like sandboxing related stuff, are more for the content, the host, than they are for the person inside the iframe. Right? So as a person who's using a website inside, you might want to restrict what the inside website is doing, the iframe website is. So that unfortunately doesn't apply here, because that could basically mean anyone could copy paste some iframe snippet, put it somewhere else, and it works in the unintentional way that, or the wrong way, if you would.
And this is the sort of thing where you wouldn't have control over the iframe, right? You're doing
Correct.
it on the inside.
Yeah, you don't know where you're sitting. You have no idea who's embedding you, that kind of stuff. So the most you can sort of give them is basically a snippet that resembles something like this, which is like, hey, in this iframe code, make sure you have this snippet of JavaScript and this link right next to the iframe as well. Like that's the most you can do, is say, use this to put this in your website, so you have a good user experience, or the best we can currently afford. Yeah, back there.
Security-wise, like once you've written the iframe to do these things, is there anything that stops somebody else from writing their website to also use your iframe, and then instead the messages are going across theirs instead of to yours?
Great question. Yeah. So the question is roughly is like, is there something preventing people from, or is, if you were to implement this, have this iframe, have this snippet, could people take this snippet, basically put it anywhere and expect it to work? That is the intention behind this code, is that you don't know where it's going, you want it to work. If you don't want it to work that particular way, you can absolutely prevent controls of it. You can actually prevent that from happening, right? So what you could do is basically look at the host header on your server and say, which host is this coming from? Which website is this request coming from? And it's coming from some known host. Okay, fine. Render the actual underlying application. Otherwise, prevent them. Otherwise, say like a 403 or something like that.
So in this specific case, we're wanting it to be open. So if you want it to be more closed, you would have that control.
You'd have to write some code. You'd have to write either some middleware or something like that, or add something, configure your Nginx proxy or something like that says prevent, only allow this host to render this application. Yeah. JavaScript, man, you never stop learning. Yeah, there's some other chatter about, how do you say it? Like cookie partitioning and that kind of stuff that the browser vendors are looking at, like the WhatWG group, for example. And they're basically saying like, hey, can we come up with some way to basically say some domains can have cookie access to some other domains? It sounds terrible in my opinion, but they're looking at that so that people don't have to jump through these kinds of hoops in order to make it work that way. How that would be, I have no idea, but there is some like ongoing chatter about that. It's like mailing lists and stuff like that. The folks who decide that kind of stuff. So there's that. Cool. All right. I know we're 4 minutes over time, so I'm just gonna chop this off and we can chat later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Gonna go change my GitLab password now.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for talking this evening, and thank you everyone for coming. There's still some extra beer in the back. If you want to hang out and nerd out, please feel free to do so. If not, see you in January.
Yeah! Hey, how about a big fucking round of applause for Guillermo, Matt, and Fraser and Shitty pulling us together?